going to put my brother's name on the deed of the bakery tonight, before the dinner crowd shows up." That's how my father said it, like he was reminding me to grab milk on the way home. He was sitting at the corner booth, the one I keep reserved for walk-ins and regulars who want to linger, and he had a quart of dough in front of him that nobody had charged him for. My mother was beside him with her coat still on, picking at a slice of date loaf with the side of her fork, the way she's always done. Like food is something that has to be negotiated with. My brother was across from them in the chair I usually pull out for kids, slouched so far down I could see the salt stains on the toes of his boots from the slush outside. He didn't look at me when I walked in from the back. None of them did, until my father wanted them to. My front of house, a woman named Wren, who has worked with me since the second month I opened, came to find me by the proofing oven. She was holding 2 menus pressed flat against her apron, the way she holds them when something is wrong and she doesn't want the dining room to know it. "There's a family at the corner booth," she said, very quietly. "They told me you'd want to see them. That they didn't need to be on the list." I asked her what they ordered. She said my father had asked for the cortado and a glass of water, with no ice, and that he told her to put it on the house. I told her to add it to a tab in my name and to bring my mother a fresh pot of tea, because my mother takes her tea hot enough to scald and will complain about it loudly if she doesn't get it that way. Wren didn't ask any questions. She just nodded once and went. I hadn't spoken to any of them in just under 4 years. I knew the exact number because I had counted it that morning while I was lining up the proofing baskets, the way you sometimes count things to keep your hands busy while your mind does something else. 3 years and 10 months. The last conversation had been a voicemail my father left me on the morning of my 28th birthday, asking me to call him back about something important, and when I called him back, the important thing had been a request for $9,000 to help my brother out of what my father called a temporary cash flow situation. I had said no. My father had told me I was selfish in a way that had clearly been rehearsed, the kind of speech that is commas in the right places. And then nothing. For 3 years and 10 months, nothing. No texts on Christmas, no card on my birthday the following year, or the one after that, or the one after that. My mother used to send me a card every year on my birthday with a $5 Tim Hortons gift card inside, and the year after I said no to my father, the card stopped coming. That's how I knew it was a decision. The cards stop because cards are decisions. I took off my apron and folded it and set it on the steel counter by the dish pit. I washed my hands. I checked my hair in the small reflection of the convection oven door. Then I walked out through the swing door into the front of the bakery. The place was just starting to fill the way it does on a Thursday before the after-work crowd, when the light through the front windows turns that particular slate blue color you only get in Ottawa in February. I had bought the building 3 years ago with everything I had and a small business loan from a credit union that had taken 6 months to approve. I had ripped out the drop ceiling myself on weekends with a borrowed crowbar and a respirator I'd bought at Canadian Tire. I had named the place after a phrase my grandmother used to say in Polish, a phrase that means small loaves, said the way you'd say small mercies. The sign above the door was hand-painted by a woman I'd gone to art school with before I dropped out and started baking. Everything in that room was something I had decided. My father looked up when he saw me and smiled the way he smiles for photographs. "There she is," he said. "Look at this place. You did good for yourself, kid." I stopped at the edge of the booth. I didn't sit down. There's a particular kind of conversation you can only have standing up, and I needed to have one of those. "You need to leave," I said. "I have a service in 20 minutes. "We're not going anywhere," my mother said. She still hadn't taken her coat off. "We drove 4 hours. The least you can do is sit with us for 10 minutes. It's a 4.5-hour drive from where they live near Kingston, not 4. I knew that because I had done it both ways, alone, more times than I wanted to count back when I was still trying. I didn't correct her. There's no point in correcting people about distances when distance isn't what they actually came to talk about. "Your brother needs your help," she said. "That's all this is." My brother looked up at me then, and for a second, maybe less than a second, his face did something I almost recognized. Then it stopped doing it, and he was back to looking at his hands. "Nice place," he said. "Bigger than I figured." "Get out," I said. My father reached into the inside pocket of his parka and pulled out a folded sheaf of papers and slid them across the table between the cortado and the date loaf. "We had this drawn up by a lawyer," he said. "Clean. You add his name to the deed tonight, give him a 15% share, he becomes a partner on paper, and we're done. No mess." I didn't touch the papers. You had a lawyer draw up papers giving my brother a piece of my business, I said, and then you drove 4.5 hours and walked into my bakery without calling on a Thursday to get me to sign it tonight. You wouldn't take our calls. There's a reason for that. My mother put on the voice she uses when she's decided to be patient. It's the voice she used when I was 11 and refusing to wear the dress she picked out for my cousin's confirmation. It hasn't changed. Your brother got himself into a bind, she said. He invested in something that went bad. He's trying to climb out. You have this, she gestured at the front of the bakery, at the tin ceiling I had stripped and repainted myself, at the long marble counter I had hauled in pieces up from a salvage yard in Hintonburg. You have all of this. Your brother has nothing. Does that feel right to you, Bronte? Does that feel like family? The word landed the way she meant it to. Bronte is what they call me. My name is Bronte Wisniewski, and almost nobody outside of my family has ever called me anything but Bronte W. or just Chef. Hearing the full thing in my mother's mouth was like being 11 again on a different sidewalk in a different city. I made myself breathe through it. I thought about the 4 years. The 30-something calls I made before I stopped making them. The Easter I spent in my apartment in Veneer eating a frozen pierogi from the grocery store because I had told myself I was fine and I had been, mostly, fine. I thought about the line of credit I didn't tell anyone about, the one in my name with a balance on it I hadn't put there. $11,400, originally, pulled when I was 20 by someone who had my SIN memorized because they'd helped me fill out the forms for my first part-time job. It had taken me until I was 26 to find it on my Equifax report, because I'd never had reason to pull one until I went to apply for the loan to buy the building. It had taken me another 14 months after that to pay it off in full, and another year to repair the damage to my score. None of them knew that I knew. That was the thing I'd been holding for almost 6 years now. The small flat stone I'd kept in my pocket and rolled between my fingers when I needed to remind myself of something. I need to get back to the kitchen, I said. I'll have Ren bring you the bill. We're not leaving, my father said, and the smile went out of his face the way a light goes out all at once. You owe this family. I don't want to make this ugly, Bronte, but I will. You want me to start making calls, your suppliers, the credit union, your landlord? Because I know your building's mortgaged through Alterna, and I know the manager there used to be in our parish in Kingston before he transferred. One phone call. I looked at him for what felt like a long time but was probably 4 or 5 seconds. I held my face still. I have a trick for that, learned from years of looking at customers who are about to tell me my bread is too dark. Give me until close, I said. 10 o'clock. I'll come back and we'll talk. He leaned back. He picked up the cortado again. That's all we were asking for. I walked back through the swing door into the kitchen and I didn't run and I didn't shake, and I want to be clear that I didn't, because everything that came after needed me to be calm, and I was. I had spent 4 years building something that could not be taken from me, and I had spent every single one of those years knowing, somewhere underneath everything else, that this conversation was coming. I didn't know it would be a Thursday in February. I didn't know it would be in the corner booth. But I knew the shape of it, the reappearance, the hands held out. I took my phone out of my back pocket and I sent one text to one person. They're here. Came in without calling. Corner booth, I need you. The 3 dots came up almost immediately, and then a message that said, on my way. Don't sign anything, don't even touch a pen. I'll be there in 40 minutes. Her name is Adaise and she's a paralegal at a small firm in Vanier that mostly does small business law for new Canadians and immigrant families, and she had been the person who walked me through my purchase of the bakery building 2 years ago. Before that, she'd been my downstairs neighbor in the first apartment I'd ever rented on my own. Before that, decades before that, she had grown up 2 streets over from my parents in Kingston, and she had been at my baptism, and she had babysat my brother and me when we were small. She knew all of them. That was the thing that mattered. She knew all of them, and she had no remaining patience for any of them. And she had once, when I was 23 and broke and crying in her kitchen about something my mother had said about my weight, told me, very calmly, that some people in this life are owed nothing from you. No matter what they tell you they are owed, and the sooner you write that down somewhere you can read it, the better your 40s are going to be. She arrived just after 8. I had her come in through the back, through the alley door by the dumpsters, because I didn't want my father to see her until I needed him to. She had a leather portfolio under her arm, and she was still wearing her court shoes, and her face had the particular set it gets when she has stopped being a friend for a few minutes and started being a professional. We sat in the small office I keep behind the walk-in, a room that smells like burlap and printer toner, and I told her everything that had happened in the booth. The line of credit, she said. The one from when you were 20. I have the original credit report. I have the payoff statements. I have the bank records showing every payment I made. I have screenshots of the Equifax report from when I first found it. It's all in a binder at my apartment, but I have copies of the important things on a flash drive in my purse because I have been carrying that flash drive in my purse for 6 years. She nodded slowly. She has a way of nodding that is not encouragement exactly. It's more like she's checking a box. She told me about a clause in the Criminal Code of Canada about identity fraud, and a thing about the limitations period in Ontario, which is longer than people think when the original act involved deception, and how it gets calculated from the discovery of the fraud and not from the date the fraud was committed. She told me she would not, tonight, advise me to call the police, because once I did that, the conversation in the front of my bakery would end and the people in the corner booth would get into a Civic and drive back to Kingston. And the line of credit would stay a thing they had done that they were never asked to answer for. She looked at me for a long second. She said, "What are you actually trying to do tonight, Bronte? Tell me the actual shape of it," I told her. When I was done, she was quiet for a moment, and then she opened her laptop and she said, "Give me an hour, keep them in the booth, put more food in front of them, make them comfortable." I went back out into the front. The dinner service had quieted to the late evening rhythm I love most. About my own place, the last tables lingering over coffee, 2 regulars at the counter reading their books. The playlist a friend of mine had built me for winter Thursdays, playing low through the speakers. I asked Ren to bring a half bottle of an Ontario Riesling to the corner booth and a charcuterie board with the good pâté and to refill my mother's tea. Hospitality is a kind of theater. A daughter softening is a thing people want to see. When I sat down at the booth, my mother looked up with the careful neutral face of someone who has been waiting and has decided not to show it. My father had his phone out. My brother was on his second glass of Riesling, which surprised me, because he doesn't usually drink anything that isn't beer. "I appreciate you waiting," I said. The word appreciate cost me something to say, and I paid it. "Tell me about the deal that went bad." My father put his phone down. He was a contractor on a residential development outside Belleville, he said. He put his savings into it. The lead developer turned out to be running it without proper financing. The project collapsed. My brother and 3 other investors are out their stakes, and the unsecured creditors are now coming after him personally because he'd signed personal guarantees he hadn't read closely enough. The number is somewhere around 180,000. He needs a stake in something real, my father said. A piece of a profitable business. Something with cash flow. The 15% gives him paper assets to show his creditors. It buys him time to negotiate them down. And if the creditors come after the stake, I said, if they put a lien on my bakery. That won't happen, my father said, waving his hand. You don't know that. My mother reached across the table and put her hand on top of mine. Her hand was cold. It always is because of her circulation. We know we haven't been good, she said. We know there's been space between us. But you are the only one in this family who has what it takes to fix this. Your brother doesn't have your steadiness. He never did. You are always the responsible one. The one who didn't need things to be easier. She paused. The pause was practiced. We counted on that, maybe more than we should have. But your brother needs you to be steady one more time. It was a beautiful piece of work. It made their neglect of me into evidence of how strong I was. It turned every Christmas I had spent alone in my apartment into a compliment. I almost admired it. I nodded slowly, the way you nod when you're considering. Can I ask you something, Dad? Of course. When I was 20. The line of credit. Do you know what I'm talking about? A flicker. Too fast for my brother to catch, but I have been watching my father's face for 31 years. I saw it. I don't know what you mean, my father said. There was a credit line opened in my name at a CIBC branch in Kingston when I was 20. $11,400. The branch was 3 blocks from your house. I found it on my credit report 6 years ago. I have spent the last 6 years paying it off and rebuilding my credit from it. I kept my voice the same as it had been when I was asking about the Riesling. I'm not angry about it. I just need to know if we're being honest in this conversation, because if we're not, I can't help my brother. The booth was very quiet. That was a mistake, my mother said finally. Her voice had gone thinner. We were going to pay it back. But you didn't. We intended to. Your father lost his contract that fall, and when I called you about it, when I was 26 and I had just found out and I asked you what had happened, you told me that I had been living under your roof, eating your food, going to a college you'd helped me pay for, and that what family does is share burdens. I stopped. I took a breath. I have thought about that conversation, on and off, for a long time. About the math you were doing. About what you thought I owed you, just for being. My brother hadn't moved. He was staring at the corner of the table. I'm not bringing this up to fight, I said. I'm bringing it up because if I'm going to help, I need every old thing on the table first. Otherwise, we're just gonna do this dance again in 2 years. My father cleared his throat. He took a long pull of his cortado, which had gone cold. The line of credit was a mistake, he said. We handled it badly, but that was a long time ago, Bronte. You've clearly come out the other side. You've done well. I have, I said. I just wanted to hear you say it out loud. I stood up. Let me grab some paperwork from the office, I said. Just a couple of things I'll need before I sign anything. I walked back through the swing door. Adaeze was at my desk with 2 stacks of paper in front of her and a yellow legal pad covered in her handwriting. How are they, she said. Comfortable. 3 glasses of wine in. She slid the first stack toward me. Here is what you are signing, she said. You are not signing over a share of your business. You are extending your brother a secured personal loan structured as a partnership investment for the appearance of his creditors. It's legal, it's enforceable, and if his unsecured creditors come after this stake, they find a loan note that puts your claim ahead of theirs against his personal assets, including his half of the house in Kingston, which I've just confirmed is in his name jointly with his fiancée and has equity in it because the housing market in Kingston has done what it has done. She tapped the second stack. This is the recording disclosure. Ontario is a one-party consent jurisdiction for recording conversations. You are a party. You don't need anyone else's permission. But I want you to make it clear to them that you are recording because I want a clean foundation if this ever ends up in front of anyone. You can frame it as a requirement of your accountant. You can say something that sounds like a regulation. He will not check. She looked at me steadily. Bronte, I can still walk out there with you right now and tell them to leave. I can write a cease and desist tonight. We can call non-emergency and have them removed for the threats your father made about the credit union. You don't have to do this the long way. I know, you understand that the long way is harder and longer. I know. All right, she said. Then go finish it. I fixed my hair in the small mirror behind the office door. I let my shoulders drop a little. I made my face soft and a little tired, the look of a daughter who has decided that being right is more expensive than being done. I walked back out to the booth. I've been thinking about what you said, Mom, I said. I sat down across from her. About being the steady one. I let the pause sit. You're right that I've always handled things myself. Maybe that made it easy to assume I didn't need anything. My mother's face shifted. Something that almost looked like warmth came into it. People are very easy to disarm when you give them what they thought they had to fight for. So I'll help, I said. But I need to do it properly, for the business, for my insurance, for my accountant. I have to record this conversation. Ontario regulations on private business transactions over $10,000 require documented consent when a verbal agreement precedes a signature. That's not strictly true, but it's not a thing my father is going to look up. It's standard. It just protects me at tax time. I'd rather have it and not need it. I set my phone in the middle of the table, leaned against the small carafe of water. I pressed record. I need you to state that this is a secured, personal loan from my business to my brother, I said. Personal because I assume you don't have an LLC or a numbered company set up. My brother shifted. It's just me. Personal. Fine. So this is a secured personal loan from Wisniewski Bakery Inc. to my brother, secured against his personal assets. Dad, I'd like you to state for the recording that you're aware of the transaction and that you understand the structure, because as a guarantor, you're on the note too. My accountant will want it documented this way. Otherwise it can get coded as a gift and I take a tax hit on it. 40%, easy. My father's eyes flicked to the phone, then to me, then to the folder I had set down. I watched him do the arithmetic he thought he was doing. He saw a daughter being careful with paperwork. He saw the responsible one being responsible. Fine, he said. He sat up straighter. Aye, he said, and then he gave his full name and the date and stated that he was authorizing this transaction between his daughter's business and his son for the purpose of satisfying his son's debt obligations and providing collateral for further negotiations with his son's creditors. And just so my accountant has the full picture, I said, very lightly, very offhanded, she's going to want a quick note on the record about any prior financial dealings between me and the family. It helps her establish this is a first formal transaction and not part of a pattern. She'll just need a mention, just for documentation. There was a prior incident when I was 20 involving a line of credit taken out in my name. Nothing that affects this. Just a note that the prior thing was informal, this one is structured. The booth went still. You want me to talk about that on a recording, my father said slowly. It actually helps me, I said. It establishes that this transaction is different in kind. It protects me from any later appearance of mixed family business finances. It makes the old thing officially a separate matter. He believed me. I saw the resistance go out of his face. He decided that the path of least friction was the honest one. He decided, the way certain kinds of men always decide, that he was the smartest person at the table. There was a line of credit opened in Bronte's name approximately 11 years ago, he said, looking at the phone. The amount was around $11,000. It was used to cover family expenses at the time. It was handled informally. This current transaction is separate and distinct from that previous matter. Perfect, I said. Thank you. I slid the loan note across the table. 11 pages, tabs on the signature lines. My brother as borrower, my father and mother as guarantors. My brother picked up the pen, and for a second, just a second, his hand stopped. He pointed to a clause on page 6. What does this mean? Asset guarantee, I said. Standard. It means if you default, my company has first claim against your personal assets before any other unsecured creditor. It's how the bank would write it. It's just protective paperwork. If you pay this back, which you will, the clause never gets triggered. He looked at me. I looked back at him and let my face be soft. He signed. My father signed without reading. My mother signed after checking only the signature lines. The pen was still in her hand when my phone buzzed in front of me. A message from Madaisy. 3 words. It's done. Confirmed. I picked the phone up. I stopped the recording. I need to tell you something, I said. My father looked up. The money I was going to wire to my brother's creditors. I wired it this morning. But not to them. I set the phone face up on the table so they could see the screen. I bought the debt. I paid his unsecured creditors 62 cents on the dollar. They were ready to take it. They had him pegged as a near total loss and they wanted out of the file. There was a silence in the booth that was different from the previous silences. It had a kind of weight to it. What does that mean, my brother said. His voice was flat. It means I'm your creditor now, I said. The $180,000 is still owed. It's just owed to me. The note you just signed confirms that the debt is a personal obligation secured against your personal assets, including your share of the house in Kingston, with no liquid means to satisfy it. I turned to my father. And you just confirmed on a recorded conversation that you opened a line of credit in my name when I was 20 without my consent. That's identity fraud under the criminal code. I'm not going to the police with that recording. Not tonight, but I'm keeping it. My father's face had gone very still. The smallness underneath the smile had come up to the surface. You can't do this, my mother said. Her voice broke for the first time in the conversation. Bronte, he's your brother. I turned to my brother. The anger I had expected to feel was not in the room. What was in the room was something quieter and much older. I would have helped you, I said, if you had called me, if any of you had called me like a person. I spent 2 years paying off something I didn't take out. I rebuilt my credit from underneath it. I built this place from nothing, on a credit union loan I qualified for on my own, without a cosigner, without one single phone call to ask if I needed help. Not when I got the keys. Not when I opened. Not when I won Best New Bakery in the Ottawa Citizen 2 years ago. My brother didn't say anything. He was looking at his lap. The asset guarantee gives me a registered claim against your share of the house, I said. I'm not going to force a sale. Adiz is going to register a writ of seizure. You won't be able to sell or refinance without satisfying the note first. You're going to make monthly payments, 3% interest, less than you'd get anywhere else. It will take you a long time. That's fine. I'm in no hurry. This is extortion, my father said. The ease had gone out of his voice. What was underneath was something harder and much smaller. "It's a legal transaction you agreed to and signed," I said, twice, once in writing, once on tape. I stood up. I picked up the folder. "I'm going to ask you to leave now. Ren will bring you the bill for the wine and the board. There's a Holiday Inn on the highway by the airport. Odyssey can recommend one." I leaned down, just slightly, just so only my father could hear me. "You just confessed, on tape, to a fraud you committed against your own daughter," I said. "I have been carrying that for 6 years. I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing this because I'm done being the only person in this family who pays for things." I walked back toward the kitchen. Ren caught my eye by the till. I gave her the smallest nod. She moved toward the booth with the bill folded in her hand, and I pushed through the swing door into the warm noise of my own kitchen, and the air inside it was the air I had built. A Daisy was waiting in the office. She looked up. "It's done," I said. She held her hand out for the folder. She opened it, checked the signatures, checked the pages, closed it again. She looked at me. "How do you feel?" I thought about it honestly. "Like I paid off a debt," I said. She nodded once, the way she nods when something is correct. 8 weeks later, a Daisy registered the writ. The note went into effect. My brother set up an automatic transfer in late April. Small monthly amounts, the kind that stretch out across many years. He is never called to argue about it. He just pays. My father called once, from a number I didn't recognize, about a month after the Thursday. I let it go to voicemail. He talked for almost 5 minutes about loyalty and the people who raised me and what I was doing to his standing in the parish. I listened to the whole thing twice, then I deleted it. The bakery had its best quarter in May. I hired a second baker and extended Sunday hours for the brunch crowd. The marble counter aged the way I had wanted it to age, into something cloudy and warm. A reporter from a magazine came in to do a piece on women-owned small businesses east of the canal, and when she asked me how I'd done it, I told her I had done it slowly and on my own, and that there was no other way. My mother sent me one text 2 months after the Thursday. 4 words. "I hope you're proud." I looked at it for a long time. The hours of the bakery I had once written out on a chalkboard by the door, and the last line was something my grandmother used to say at the end of a hard week. The same words she said to me the day I left home, which was, in Polish, that the bread does not ask who is hungry. It just rises. I thought about that line for a long time before I typed back 2 words, which were the truth. "I am." Then I blocked the number, and I went back to the proofing oven, and I got to work. I think about that Thursday in February more than I expected to. Not the booth. Not the papers. Not the moment my father's face went still when he realized what he'd just said into my phone. I think about the 4 years before it. The quiet ones. The ones nobody asks you about. Because nobody knew they were happening. What I learned, slowly, over those 4 years and the months after, is that the people who hurt you do not stop hurting you because you stopped picking up the phone. They just wait. They wait for a season where they need something, and then they come back through the door like nothing happened, and they expect you to be the same person you were the last time they saw you. Smaller, quieter, easier to move. The line of credit my father opened in my name when I was 20 was not a one-time mistake. It was the shape of how he saw me. A resource that didn't need to be asked. And every Christmas card my mother stopped sending, every voicemail that went unanswered, was them confirming that shape to themselves. The math they had been doing on me my whole life. I was useful or I was nothing. Cause and effect is the most honest thing in the world, even when families pretend it isn't. My father made a decision when I was 20. I made a different decision when I was 26 and pulled my credit report and saw my own name on a debt I had never agreed to. I started keeping records. I started carrying a flash drive in my purse. I called a Daisy for coffee once a month for 6 years and asked her questions I didn't tell anyone else I was asking. The Thursday in the bakery wasn't revenge. It was a bill coming due on a schedule I had set in a room I had built. Every choice they made, going back years, walked them straight to that corner booth. And every choice I had made, just as quietly, walked me to the chair across from them with a phone on the table and a folder in my hand. I want to say something about strength, because I think it gets misused. The kind of strength that actually matters is not loud. It is not a closing line. It is the patience to sit with what you know and not act on it until acting on it is correct. It is the discipline to keep paying down a debt that was never yours, every month, for years, without letting it turn you into someone bitter. It is the wisdom to know the difference between forgiving people and continuing to fund them. Those are not the same thing, no matter what anyone tells you. You can let go of the anger and still register the lien. What I would tell anyone watching this, whether you have a family like mine or not, is to write down the truth somewhere only you can read it and check it often. Carry the evidence. Be patient. Build something they can't touch. And when the day comes that someone walks back into your life with their hand out, you'll know what to do, because you'll already have done it. The bread does not ask who is hungry, it just rises.